All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to welcome Tina and Karen from Quantum Healing back on the channel. Welcome you too.
Hello.
Hey. Hello, welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you for coming, ladies. Always a pleasure talking with you guys. We're going to discuss just mainly some catch up and things we've each learned and experienced since last time we talked. We were just talking a little bit about kind of the matrix phenomena and how I've been studying IT and maybe some of the fractals. Karen just asked me about the numerology and whether that's I figured anything out regarding that. Um, as some of you guys from my channel know that I've been talking about in regards to that, the only thing I can say is that it's a system by the matrix, especially with astrology included. They're interrelated, in my opinion. And the only thing you're going to figure out is not the spirit or the soul, like people like Pythagoras maybe trying to tell you, like, oh, that's your soul number, oh, that's your soul mission, oh, that's your whatever. Because, and I think you two share the same opinion about the soul. I think because we kind of related on this aspect that it's kind of a capsule for the spirit. So it's another matrix development, right? Another matrix, maybe even body or some kind of holding ground for the spirit. And it's created to serve the system, right? So your soul mission or your soul purpose here can be encoded in these systems, in this numerology or astrology. And, it can be something mundane like um, making whatever, $1 million or something like that. Or something more spiritual like, oh, I want to heal the world. I want to heal 1 million people, or that's my soul mission, right? And people derive a lot of their personal identity or their ego from that, and they say, well, I'm not good enough if I only healed 999,999 people because I didn't get that 1 million. And going into the life review and things like that afterwards, they can say, well, you didn't fulfill your soul mission, and you knew astrology, you knew numerology, you knew it, like you figured it out, and you still didn't do it, so shame on you, you're not good enough. And I just watched an interesting movie uh, that just came out called After Death. I don't know if you two have seen it or heard about it.
I don't
Mhm.
think so.
No.
It's very interesting, but I was gonna make a video about it, but it's highly propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
just like many near death, if not all near death experiences,
Mhm.
which in which people meet kind of the background characters, or rather, the supporting cast of this Matrix, and they get a little peek behind the curtain of the world stage. So, what
Is
do you
that
guys
an
think about
older
that?
movie?
It's new. It just came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who's in it?
And
Wow.
Or
it,
like what platform is it on?
it's in theaters.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. It's very
It's an
brand
actual
new.
movie, but it's made by the same people that made Sound of Freedom. If you guys have seen that one.
I haven't seen it, but I know all
Mm-mm.
about it.
And there was a whole drama with that, how, oh, it had to fight its way into the movie theaters, and there's a special message at the end how we need your support to pay for a ticket to pay it forward for other people to watch this movie. And then here come the creators making another movie of the same quality that must have also had to go through so many things to be in the theaters. And I believe there was another movie coming out also by Angel Studios. But the common theme, as with Sound of Freedom and the other movies, is that they have a very strong Christian foundation. So it's kind of orienting people back to that belief system in a way.
Hmm. Yeah, I find that a lot of what's happening now is orienting people back to Christianity because of the false awakening that has happened and people waking up into New Age practices and then being attacked,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
often happens. And then they don't know what else to do. So they go back to Christianity because at least Christianity recognizes that there are entities and demons and things like that, you know? So they feel like the only way to gain protection is to go back to Jesus. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is why when people come to the conclusion that these practices are essentially of the matrix or demonic, then they say, oh, wait, I heard that in the Bible. There was actually truth to the Bible. All the rest of it must also be true.
Right.
So then where would you say that people should go from there or could go from there after they're stuck in that limbo?
Well, I think when people are stuck in that place where, you know, they've opened themselves up without having any discernment, you know, because that's really what these new age practices teach you is to open yourself up to all of these beings that are outside of you, whether they're ascended masters or angels or whatever it is. And, you know, for a while that seems to work because they do, you know, they will perform miracles. They will. But then soon after that, your energy will start being siphoned and you'll start being drained and you'll have attacks coming in and things going wrong in your life. And then you realize that it's coming from these connections that I made without having the discernment. So I think when people find themselves in that place, instead of running back to religion, it's finding people that understand, you know, that what you're going through and that can teach you how to safely connect without, you know, without having to connect with beings that you don't know who these beings really are, you know, like that's the thing. And they're all seem to be working for the matrix in some way or another. And they're very, very good at shape shifting and showing up to you as a beautiful being of light, you know. So I think people that find themselves in that situation, they're, you know, the fear becomes so overwhelming that they don't know what else to do besides like running back to Christianity and Jesus and those kinds of things. But there is a balance that can be had when you understand how these entities work and how to become solid within yourself and protect yourself without, you know, and connecting with your own higher aspects of self without having to connect with these beings and becoming really solid and centered and grounded. And what we're teaching people is like, you have to be grounded in the body because a lot of the new age practices are teaching people to go out, out, out. It's always about looking outside of you. But we're teaching people how to be grounded and embodied and embodying your own higher aspects of yourself will give you the strength and power to navigate through whatever you need to navigate through, you know, instead of having to run again to something outside of yourself like religion for protection. You can do those things yourself, but you have to be grounded and embodied to do that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I enjoyed connecting with both of you because you guys are able to put an image to what I was theorizing or concluding. And I think that's important, especially with everyone promoting, like you said, astral projecting or leaving the body, out of body experiences, and NDEs, psychedelics, especially
mm-hmm.
because people do want to see it. I wanted to see it. I wanted to confirm what I was hearing and learning about,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's a way to do that maybe more organically and without leaving yourself vulnerable and susceptible to energetic attachments and attacks. So then, Karen or Tina, what do you what do you guys think that these beings really even are that are coming in? Would you equivocate them to higher vibrational demons, or are they actually
Are
beneficial
vibrational demons?
entities? I don't know. Are they actually beneficial entities that are creating some sort of exchange, but
Um,
maybe it's more beneficial to them? Or what are they? What the heck are they? What do they
well,
want?
well, they want our life force. They want our creativity because they're not creator beings.
Okay.
They want our abilities, our connection. It's just to feed them. Like we're just an open buffet. So if you have a collective consciousness that we're feeding into, and there's wars happening and all this stuff that's going on, we're like in an apocalypse. They're making everybody disconnected through the agenda, trauma. Like that's just they're feeding and feeding. If everybody were to individually take accountability instead of like, oh, we got to save the collective, if everybody just took accountability for themselves, we wouldn't be in this predicament. People would be able to heal themselves and then not have these energies come in and attach, manipulate, use against others. Like it creates vicious cycles within humanity because they're using it. Are there high vibrational demons? I don't know if that's, I don't think so. I don't, I know that there's a lot of false light out there. That's, there's different categories of beings. So they have like those intense demons. Then you have astral beings, you have false light beings, you have, um, I don't know. There's just multiple, but they all, and even earthbound souls that are trapped here because they have attachments themselves. So there's a vast array of like beings that are here that people just need to be aware of, and to know that they, being part of this space, usually they're not good. I do believe that there are um, benevolent energies here, but I feel like it right now it's more connected to our own higher selves. That's pretty much it. Because nothing here has intervened so far to save us or to whatever. I think there's an orchestration between our higher selves and what they're trying to show us, how they've gotten us in certain situations. You can take things like really poor situations that you've experienced either as something that can propel you in how to create better discernment for yourself, or you could be victimized by it. So you're always in a space of like, okay, well, can that ruin my life, or will it teach me in a way of detaching from this place further? So I think it's not a school, it's a school in how to get out, to drop out of here.
Drop out. Earth school dropout.
Yeah, the Earth school dropout. So it does teach you something, but it's not what they tell you it is. It's not in karma, it's in getting out, in knowing how to untangle yourself. So there's a lot of choice points that they show you. All these experiences are there to make you make a decision. You're always at a fork at every place that you go.
Now, that's a great point. Would you say that this decision is between positive and negative, or between something completely outside of that, or maybe something else?
Can you give an example?
So like you mentioned with the false light, right? Everyone becomes addicted to the positivity when the new age. It's all about staying loving and
I think
being of the light, whether
yeah.
it's false or not.
I think everything teaches you to a certain degree, or it gives you something to a certain degree until you hit a wall. So it could, if you're in a space where you don't believe in miracles and you get your miracle, then that might bring in consciousness in another way. And then after that, it doesn't do anything anymore. Then you got to go make a detour somewhere else. I think it's just directing us. It could direct you in different places. It could get you in a deadlock, or it could direct you somewhere else. So thankfully what happened with Tina and I and our stuff was that we were able to experience a lot of things in our spiritual journey, but we didn't stick to it. We kind of just dabbled and left it, and took what really helped us to grow, and kind of whatever didn't resonate, we kind of left in the back pocket. But it's also just something that we use as tools to help other people in case they're stuck there. Because like belief systems, like as we've mentioned many times, are what gets us caught. So,
Yes.
like, yes, you can take the Bible and come back to Jesus, but then you take that doesn't mean that the whole Bible is true. It doesn't mean that all of Christianity is correct, but there are truths in everything. This matrix does give you Easter eggs. You just got to find them.
Mm.
And then you drop the rest because you don't need it. So it's just like everything. It doesn't matter what. You just have to be able to discern to find it. I think that's really what the game is to find the truth.
Yeah, kind of like a video game, to be honest. Like
Right.
you think the
Exactly.
main purpose of the video game is to complete it or to win, but there are so many things that were maybe inserted by the creators that could help you fulfill a different objective, more important to your actual true self.
Right.
And that's literally what I was saying in my last video about specifically about Gnosticism, because again, it's another category that people can fall into. And then they're like, well, this makes sense. This makes sense. Okay, let's take all this stuff with the two because I don't know much about it, but that might be right too. So let's follow it like a dogma. And again, people stop thinking for themselves.
Exactly.
But I do not think that anything, any single opinion or any single category of truth that you can learn about outside of yourself in this matrix, in this realm, is going to offer you a full truth, especially not something that has been infiltrated into the mainstream,
Mm-hmm.
and more than likely has been vetted by those that control that information, whether it's through academia, whether it's through archaeology, history,
Mm-hmm.
alternative media, any sort of sources that you can find. Unless you yourself, dig up some ancient book, even then, likely those
Yeah,
people
right.
had some sort of connections to
Right.
entities or something like that.
Absolutely.
Well, the ancient books are inside of us. Like
Yeah,
we have everything inside of us. And most of what Karen and I have learned has been through helping our clients explore their consciousness,
yeah.
right? Because that's where we find the truth. That's how
Mm-hmm.
we've found at least the truth of what's happening here. When we think of the matrix system, like we came to those conclusions through exploring the consciousness of our clients and helping them connecting with their higher selves to find what is the truth. And what we've seen through those explorations is that there's an energy here, there are entities here that have been following us throughout lifetimes, suppressing, controlling, manipulating, and using and abusing us. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question was like, wait, why are there so many lifetimes where people are repeating the same exact things over and over and over again, the same traumas with the same people, playing out the same roles, just on a loop? Like it's just looping and looping and looping. Same thing. Where, when you're learning this kind of work, say like in the Dolores Cannon method, the the thought or idea is that we switch roles, that we play different roles for different people and take on, you're going to be the character of the bad guy in this life to help this soul growth, right? But that's not what we were seeing at all. And so,
There's a catch because you're gonna play that bad guy. You're gonna impose that trauma, but then you're gonna get a life review because you don't remember making that agreement, and they're gonna say, "Well, you did all that, so you gotta go back."
yeah, and they come back and they do the same thing again to the same person, same
Mm-hmm.
soul. Like
And
it just,
then mind wipe.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So coming to see that through actually not just believing what we were told by the standard, past life regression um, gurus out there, that have done this for a really long time, but actually seeing something completely different made us realize, wait, there seems to be maybe both are true at the same time too, but the clients that we're seeing, that's not true for them. And I think it speaks to a bigger truth of what's actually happening here. And the bad guy good guy role seems to be kind of stuck in place, and then just repeating that loop. And really, for us and our clients that we've worked with, it's like, okay, we need to break this loop. Like, it's time to break this loop. And how do you do that? You do that by really grounding into the body, lots of self love, and realizing that, you know, there's an element here where we've been allowing ourselves to be abused because we don't know how to be free. We don't know how. So it's about learning how to be free because we've been enslaved for so long.
Yeah, yeah. We don't remember it. And maybe a lot of us aren't even choosing it subconsciously.
Right. Because it's easier to be controlled.
Yeah.
It's easier to be told what to do. You don't have to make any decisions or choices for yourself. You get to be a victim, and being a victim can be very comfortable. Being in your suffering can be very comfortable because that's all you know. But then when you have to, and when you have to make that shift into complete and total self responsibility. So coming out of victimhood is really truly taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life. And that includes not being a victim to, you know, entity attacks or attachments, because those things can only truly affect you when you are in that victim mindset. Because when you know you can have power and control over your body, your energy system, and your reality, then those things don't affect you anymore.
Yeah, I think it was something that Jesus said that when one merges with their higher self, or the true spirit essence of the source, they become invisible actually to these entities themselves, and then they can no longer even attach. Because I think the most really that they can do is use your own mind against you, right? They can't really make you do anything unless you succumb to those desires or to those impulses that you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They will only use what you have. They can't make anything new,
Right, right.
which is why you gotta seal up your vulnerability points when you do the self healing, so they can't use it against you.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah.
Right. They will dig through the subconscious. Like they go right into your subconscious.
Oh
They
yeah, they love
know.
it there. We've done a lot of RSR, like remote spirit release clearings, and the subconscious is the dirtiest and filthiest place I could usually go to.
Now, does that remind you of anything, though? A
Here?
specific realm?
Oh, like the astral?
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
I
yeah.
think the subconscious is directly linked to the astral.
Yes, that's what I've also concluded. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an astral, there's a subconscious programming that happens astrally, starting from, I mean, like a grooming that happens starting from when most of us are really, really young. We've seen, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
not conscious. It's not conscious at all. Like it's not in the forefront. You have no idea why you think or believe these things, but it's a really subtle thing that they do where they do it in your sleep. They're programming you in your sleep subconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from what I've learned, the astral body is the one holding all our memories and all our emotional passions, desires, motivations. So it's really devoid of any like conscious mind reasoning, anything like that. It's acting purely out of impulse. That's why usually the subconscious is the one running the show in your everyday life, because it's that astral body, which again, most people have it influenced by these entities.
Mm-hmm.
People do things on autopilot and they don't even realize that they're doing them.
Yeah.
That's probably
95.
where. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say 95% of our life until we become conscious is run by our subconscious mind and
Okay.
the programming. Yeah. 95%.
Yeah, that's probably where they bring the people who have NDEs. They just bring them to their
Yes.
subconscious.
Yes.
That's the
Which
point.
is where what is stored.
All their crap.
Yeah. All their
Well, all their
emotional
stuff,
beliefs.
everything. Yeah.
all the programs that they've received at a young age, right? So that comes out and, in a sense, is likely used against them.
Yeah. And it could very well be that, people have specifically, gone through NDEs to recall them because they have the same implants in their subconscious to recall them so that it becomes a belief system for people who are trying to follow the NDEs. Because we have seen implants and devices and things like that in the subconscious, removing them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could see how they would probably use it. Yeah, we've profiled so
Yeah.
many demons that it's like I think we know more or less how they can manipulate humans and how they would go about doing it. But yeah, we always find different methods, a lot of new methods in how they do it.
Yeah.
Or
That's
new.
interesting.
We're just recalling or finding new methods.
That's super interesting. That's what I've kind of also been doing. Maybe 50% of my work has been identifying these structures and these identities
Mm-hmm.
to help people understand that it's just the same face with a different mask
Mm.
Yeah,
and not to get
absolutely.
tricked. But the danger in that is it's still a diversion from
Mm.
the true source, right? The true spirituality.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Kind of like Gnosticism as well. They're like, well, the demiurge created this, and then whatever, Sophia, and then all these archons. Well, maybe it was the archons that created whatever, but doesn't really tell you much of how to get past all these things or how to actually connect. And then it starts telling like, then there's all these sects go into more of a cult phenomenon about Jesus. Um, Even though I do like the Gospel of Philip and Thomas and Judas and all those, which do talk about uh, you know, how Jesus was talking about basically merging with the higher self, becoming sort of masculine, feminine type of thing,
Mm.
because spirit is unified, right?
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, I saw something just yesterday about the Mona Lisa, um, in which I believe there is an apostrophe somewhere, or maybe I'm wrong, but Da Vinci had encoded the Mona Lisa with the Fibonacci sequence, specifically from 3 to 5. So you guys know how it goes: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 3 plus 5 would be 8. Now Mona Lisa is displaying 8 fingers when like her arms are crossed like this, and you can see 8 fingers. And if you take the apostrophe and you move it from between the N and the A, like they were saying, in between the the L and the I, so from the third letter to the fifth, you'd get Mona L apostrophe Isa. Now in French, you can't have two vowels next to each other. So like le étoile, you have to say l'étoile. So if you have the apostrophe between the L and the I, then it'd be le Isa or the Isa. I think you guys know where I'm going with this because who else was named Isa? Jesus, right?
Is that his name?
Yeah, Isa
Yeah.
Isu.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So the painting is very like you can't tell whether she's masculine or feminine.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
it could be a painting of Jesus, Mona de Isa, whatever Mona means. I think king or something.
So it's like a merging of the masculine and feminine.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's what I was going with. Yeah, and he talks about that. So, do you guys think past that astral level, wherever that ends, because there does seem to be a positive aspect of the astral, and then of wherever the soul also resides, that I think you guys have seen in your sessions when traveling or looking at the soul. Do you think that the higher self is somewhere further than that? And on top of that, do you think the higher self can also be captured by these beings? Kind of like the soul pods, maybe.
Hmm.
Mm. Well, maybe I think until you're able to really integrate your higher self in, then it's not going to be outside of you. It's never really outside of you. It's just a matter of retrieving. I mean, we do soul retrieval or that kind of stuff. Like we try to get as much of our pieces back from
Yeah.
different dimensions and contracts and beings, etc. Um, we do also retrieve from the matrix pod, which could very well be the higher self. I don't know. I haven't really investigated much further than that. But the higher self is always connected. It's just a matter of getting rid of all the junk in between to listen, because the ego could be in the way, your inner children could be in the way, entity could be in the way. Like there's a lot of things that might be in the way that aren't allowing for you to discern it, but it's not separated from you. That's for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I think like when you're able to really connect within it, like within, you can go as far as you can outside, but in within, traveling within, without having to leave the body.
Tina, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess it depends on like a lot of, I mean, we say higher self all the time, but like, how would you define higher self? You know, I think we need to answer that question first.
Yeah, I would define like an awareness, like that awareness behind the conscious self.
Hmm. I think that I do think too that there's a larger energy, if oversoul, if you want to call it that, from which we are a part of, you know, like all the fractals of us that are living lives multidimensionally, right? Like we know that outside of this construct, there is no time. Everything's happening all at once. So there are aspects of us that are having all of these different experiences that all belong to, say, the oversoul, or if you want to consider this energy the higher self, from which all these fractals come out and have these different experiences. Now, I think the question is, like, what happens when, say, like this fractal of me does become fully conscious and exits from this place? What happens to all those other fractals? Do they then die in the lives that they're in and come with me? You know, like, do we all merge back together to become one, to exit the construct of this earth place, like all together? I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to think about. I think, like Karen said, we always have the higher self connection. There's always a consciousness and awareness that we have within us that we just need to access, and we access that by shedding all the layers that is not that, right? So all of the thoughts, ideas, beliefs, programming, conditioning that we've experienced, entities, trauma, like really beginning to purify and shed those things allows for that connection to become stronger and stronger and brighter, and allows for the unconscious parts of ourselves to come forward so that we can shine that light on them and then integrate those unconscious parts. So bringing the unconscious conscious. And the more that we do that, the more of a strength and connection we have with what we call the higher self. I've been more so than higher self, I've been referring to it as our spirit.
Yep.
I think the idea, just the words higher self, give people the idea that it's something higher than them that they need to reach for. Again, reaching outside of us for something that's not already here. It's here. The higher self connection is right here at the heart. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to reach for anything. It's always right here. And even if it does, if the higher self technically exists in another realm or dimension, you still have that full access because you are that.
Yeah.
You are that. It's part of you. And so more so than higher self, I've been using the words divine self or even just spirit to refer to that part of us, so that people don't get the idea that it's something that's so hard, because that's a lot of the resistance people have to connecting with that part of themselves, is believing that it's like this really hard thing to do when it's not. It's who you are all the time. And um, one of the new sessions we're offering is called Quantum Connect. And, it's completely different than a deep hypnosis type session, in that it's using speed to bypass the conscious mind and accessing the higher self that way, accessing your inner knowing, your intuition, whatever you want to call it, instead of having to go like into those deep states of relaxation to make the conscious mind sleepy and get to, the divine self for the information. It's just using speed, like going really, really fast and accessing the imagination and allowing that to come through. And they're really fun exercises, and they show people that that connection is always there. We're just not used to it, to trusting it. Really, trust is the major thing when it comes to accessing that.
Right. And it doesn't feel special.
Right. It doesn't
Speed
feel
and
special. Like it's like an imagination exercise where, you're just saying the very first things that pop into your
oh, I
mind
see. Hmm.
instead of sitting and thinking and engaging the thinking part of the brain. It's bypassing that through an exercise where you're just saying the very first things and trusting the things that are coming through. Yeah.
It's funny. I just read on Twitter that someone took an IQ test on speed, like just based on the first thing that came to their mind, and whatever they got, 130. But is that potentially the true intelligence rather than pattern recognition and whatever thought, intellectual thinking? Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overthinking clouds the judgment.
Yeah.
overthinking. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're connected to our higher self all the time. We're always getting messages. The reality is always reflecting back to us. We just need to learn how to read that, and to really to begin to trust ourselves and the messages that we're getting all the time. Most of the time, at least the clients that come to us are so deeply traumatized and have been so beaten down by the entities that have followed them. And the entities, I'm not just talking like entity attachments, but the entities that work through people in their lives, that play the bad guy roles, so beaten down that they, no longer trust themselves.
Right.
So it's about rebuilding that trust in ourselves.
Yeah, is that how you would define becoming more conscious, or what a unification with that spirit would look like?
Yeah, because the spirit's always whole, right? It's just about learning to trust in it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's always
Mm-hmm.
there. Yeah.
What about like the whole masculine feminine thing where, like, for example, the man maybe is more toxic in their masculinity, so they figure that part out, right? They become more masculine, but still not fully feminine or in touch with their feminine side. And then the woman maybe is also more masculine or also more feminine, but still not fully in touch with the opposite side. And bringing that together, how do you feel about that?
Um, there's a lot of truth in that we do need to find that balance. I mean, that's what we saw in our session. In order to unlock the soul that, like you said, is being held, in
Mm-hmm.
order to, I'm sorry, unlock the spirit,
Sure, yeah.
we do need to find balance. Everything is about finding balance. So balancing the masculine and feminine, the right and left sides of the brain, the past, the future, being in the now, like it's all about balance. The more you can be in that balanced state of being, it offers you a neutral space where you're no longer accessing the duality, but you're accessing an energy that exists outside of that.
Yeah, it's exactly what I've noticed throughout my experiences here. And every time you pick a side, whether it's with diet, for example, veganism, or the carnivore diet, or politics, or
Mhm.
positivity and negativity or
Mhm.
whatever, it just swings the pendulum to the other side, and you're not in a resting position or at peace, because eventually the pendulum loses energy and poof. And that's no good for the matrix, right? Because if it
Right.
loses the energy, it's not generating energy in its movement and its oscillation anymore, then it has nothing to feed upon, kind of like a battery. If we
Mhm.
truly do define the all the bodies, not just the physical body, but the etheric body, the astral body, as batteries, they're dipolar, right? They have a positive and a negative pole, and both are needed. Because I think the common thought throughout many communities, especially New Age, is that, oh, sure, these beings exist, but they're only feeding on the negativity, only on the negative portion. But I define it kind of more like a car. The negativity can be the the um, the fuel, the unleaded, the normal type that more cars are predisposed to, right? Whereas there are some cars that take diesel, some
Mhm.
cars are electric, whatever. But just with this analogy, the positive could be the diesel, the positive could be the feminine, or no, the masculine, and the negative could be the feminine. And when you're uniting both of that, you're not picking a side; it's becoming neutral in this sense. But then you get into the idea of like, oh, well, if you're just neutral throughout your whole life, you're not passionate about anything and you become apathetic. So what do you guys think about that? That's another issue.
Well,
Well, there's balance in that too. I mean,
right.
it doesn't only just go this way, it goes this way too. So,
Oh, wow. Okay, that's another dimension that we're talking. Okay,
yeah,
what do you
it's
mean
not
by
just
that?
one. I just think it's like I I think it's like when you're able to just find that's why you need to check in with yourself all the time to see where you're at on the grid. Like, where am I?
Mhm.
So, if you're finding yourself apathetic, are you staying there or is it necessary for you to just be at rest or not give a shit at that moment? And then, you know, see how it goes. Like you're always just kind of riding it, not really knowing where it's going to lead you. But I mean, for me, it's like if you're just staying in one specific place and you get comfortable there, then it might not be that good. Not saying that peace is not good, but I mean, like you're just moving with it. You're not allowing for things to really bother you as much as they used to. You're always checking in to see if all your parts are okay. Are you hijacked somewhere? But it becomes such a natural way of being that it's not, I don't know. I always worry that like when we talk about those kind of things that we're making people become paranoid, like they always have to be on alert or whatever. It's not about that. It's really just of having that hyper awareness of the self to know if there's anything that is alerting you, because we ignore the alerts. We ignore when our body's picking up on predators when things are around. So it's just knowing that it's there and then being able to exert yourself, like your energy out, so that you're not being attacked, A, and B, so that you're not like, eh, you know, there's a balance. It's not I don't know how else to go there, but I mean, like, I know what you're talking about, like being apathetic. I find myself, I could get there sometimes, but I find it's not, it's okay. I need it. I just need to not give too much of a shit right now because I've overexerted for, let's say, like whatever's going on personally or whatever, like, or knowing what's going on in this world. Sometimes it could just be the weight of knowing what's going on out there could be so heavy on on your shoulders. And then there are just some days where I'm like, okay, I don't really have to care right now about what's going on. It's not going to change anything. And then reset and then come back to like where I
Yeah,
do care and not at the same time. Like you could do both. Like I
Yeah.
know what's going on. I mean, like my half my foot is out in the matrix um because I my kids are in the matrix. And then my other foot is what we do, like we do in the everyday, like these conversations that we're having or the work that we're doing. You can have both realities at the same time and know how to live both realities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when
it's
you're
easier.
speaking, like I was actually just thinking about this question the other night because I watched a really I'm so disconnected from what's going on in the world. Like I really had no idea. Like I knew something was happening in Israel and with that whole thing. I don't know how much we can
Oh,
say on
the way you
YouTube.
just said it was funny. Is real, whether it's real or not.
Exactly. Exactly. And we know that these things they're real, they're happening, but they're being controlled, manipulated to happen, right? And that is to further split the consciousness of humanity, further traumatize humanity as a whole, because this is a global issue. They're in it, they're really, really in it. And this video just popped up on my feed and it was by the Dr. Gabor Mate. Do you know him?
I
Mhm.
think I've heard of him. Yeah.
He's a trauma specialist and he's one of the only that I've really seen touch on these very specific topics about how our trauma can lead to physical illnesses and really like he has an expanded awareness and expanded consciousness and he was having a talk about this subject and just the way he approached it was so heartfelt and he was also speaking his truth no matter what anybody else was going to think about that truth. And he said something like, do you want to be do you want to fit in, like, and this is the question he asked, like, do I want to fit in and be liked, or do I want to be authentic to me and speak my truth? Because since coming out and like talking about this subject, he has all of these people that have, kind of followed him for years coming out and saying, I'm so disappointed in you. I'm not following you anymore. Like, like those kinds of things. Right. And one of the things he was saying was that, or that was brought up in this discussion, was this topic of neutrality and apathy, and like when we kind of exist outside of what's happening in the world, which I seem to find myself there most of the time, not picking a side, not feeding into the division, because this is another way to divide us, right? And it's like, would I consider myself apathetic? No, I don't think I am apathetic. I think I have a detached empathy when it comes to these situations. And that allows me to see the bigger picture of actually what's happening and not feeding into either side or having to pick and choose, but having empathy for everyone that's involved in it without that empathy affecting me mentally or physically or triggering my own trauma. But it's more like holding that space, just like holding the space for the humans that are going through that, you know? And I think we can do that. We can have a neutral, more observant perspective without falling into the energy of apathy.
So not triggering any savior complexes in which,
Right.
oh,
Right.
well, this side, they got brutally murdered by this other side, but I'm going to ignore everything else that they did because look how
Yeah.
bad it was. And
You don't have to insert your opinion or your,
You don't have to have an opinion. That's
yeah,
the thing. You don't have to
you,
have one.
right.
yeah,
You can just watch it.
I'm going to support them or I'm going to support them. Oh, but if you don't vote, you're not a responsible citizen because you're not
Right.
fighting
Right.
for a cause.
Right. Those are just insertions of having to choose a side, having to become, pick at your emotional body to come. Like, what do you think about that? Don't you think that's unjust? If you don't think so, then there's something wrong with you. So it's dividing, creating more division. Like me too, I didn't know that there was that stuff happening till I was like in the car with like my other like fellow mom friends. Like they're talking about it and beheading children. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why are we talking about that? And they were saying, like, didn't you hear? And I'm like, no, obviously not. If I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, another aspect to this is we don't know what's real.
Right.
We do not know what's real.
Oh yeah.
So,
Because one of the moms was a fact checker. She's like, that wasn't real.
right.
But it's just funny
They,
to watch.
yeah, they can show you videos from whenever. Yeah, I mean, look at the 9/11 videos.
Mhm.
People still believe that that happened. I just found out that those planes were really holograms.
Right.
Like,
I've heard that. I've seen that. Yeah.
yeah, so, but when you see it with your own eyes on TV or on YouTube or on a video, like it feels so real. So they purposefully insert that kind of emotional content that's going to trigger you to want to save, to want to pick a side, to want to help and in some way, right? So like, there was this whole thing about there's 40 children that they just went, or babies, 40 babies that they went in and killed. That turned out to be totally false. But that narrative is still spinning. Once they insert it, that's it. It takes off because it's riding on the emotional wave. It's triggering people's deep trauma. Of course it would. But
Right.
we don't know what's real. Like that's the thing. Like we just don't. We only know what they tell us, what the mainstream media is telling us, unless people go and like investigate and with the on the ground journalists that are really looking objectively at these things. Most people have, they're just seeing what they see on TV, not having
Right.
any
That's a good
idea.
word. Objectively. You just have to observe that way all the time. All the
Yeah.
time. And then see where your body is pulling you. So if you're
Hmm.
getting a pull, an emotional pull or something that's alerting you, it's it's good to listen to that to see like where you are still kind of
Tied
entangled in
in,
the matrix.
entangled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the matrix.
Yeah. I was going to talk about that at like the entangling. A lot of the entangling that humans feel is the entanglement with the collective energy and being pulled into, like situations like this that are happening. It's an entanglement of the collective energy with your own energy. So you have to begin disconnecting energetically from the collective because otherwise it will just keep pulling you down. It will just and it'll hold you there. And then, all these ideas of, we're supposed to help and save the collective. No, no,
Yeah. Like
no.
what better way to reopen up a wound by bringing up the Jews again? You
Right.
know,
Hmm.
like that already that situation, that unjust stuff that happened. It's like let's bring that up again.
You guys have
So
heard
for
of
those, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I'm done.
You guys have heard of quantum entanglement, right?
Hmm.
So they did the whole quantum experiment where they put a box in California and New York, quanta quarks or particles, whatever they're called,
Mm-hmm.
and these were quantum entangled. But until that box was opened, they were both in superposition. Yet the moment they opened the one in New York, for example, and they discovered it was pointed upwards, then that led to the conclusion that the one in California had to be pointed downwards because they're quantumly entangled.
Hmm.
So, taking that premise of what we just talked about to the highest macro level, the spiritual realms, if we can say that, or rather the higher matrix realms. Is it possible that we were quantumly entangled to this place based on the duality of not just this place but the whole system, in which, oh, look at all the bad stuff happening there, why don't you guys go help, right? Why don't you
Mhm.
go gain karma to sustain your spot in heaven by doing good things and gaining or redeeming yourself or gaining your worth, proving your worth to be here? Is that
Yeah.
feasible?
I just had insight like recently about how probably at this time, while there's a huge awakening or the huge awakening has happened, people are waking up very rapidly, and it feels as if like at this time a lot of the star seeds or whatever you want to call them, the ones out there that came to, who got the SOS, like, please come and help,
Hmm.
were pulled into a timeline of volunteering, which I do believe in. I do believe that they did come to genuinely help, but then they were pulled into that timeline. And then upon entering, they changed the timeline into the AI. So you have all these people waking up, and then that way, when they're kind of locked in, so consenting to come here, they change the consent up because they changed the timeline. Because once you consent to come in, it's free for all. So they changed the timeline into the transhumanism timeline, into the AI, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, being caught in the metaverse, so all humans or souls are, uh, yeah, getting entangled into the metaverse and therefore being entrapped here. So I think that was the purpose of it, to have all of those, everybody awakening, but and then getting caught in different waves of shit, like different pendulum swinging this way, that way, and getting caught into the emotional entanglement. Whereas, like, how I saw it, it's like, because I saw myself when I came in, I genuinely came in here to volunteer, but there was a zap when you come in here, a zap on my consciousness or something like that, which could very well be either stamped or, have an X on my
Mm.
back to be like whatever. And then, yeah, you're kind of trapped here until you can find ways to not be trapped. But I think because everyone's getting caught into the metaverse, they want our consciousness to be trapped here in the artificial intelligence so that we cannot escape. So it's like creating a prison planet within the prison planet, like an inception.
Okay. And I know you have something to say about that, Tina, but hold on, let me just go off that idea. So with that simulation within a simulation, basically, right?
Mhm.
Is it possible that there are simulations leading up to that, and that this really has, like Tina mentioned, already happened before with the loop phenomena, and it's just the same playbook being played out over and over again, but like with the purpose of creating more bodies to further entrap the spirit into? So we got to the soul, we got to the astral body, etheric, physical, and next is the digital body, which
Well,
is really the same as the other ones. Maybe they're all digital.
maybe all the digital ones that they're creating or copy pasting are going to be put into the humans, and therefore they'll just be digital. They'll just be robots. It's a digital consciousness, so it's not really organic.
Well, that's why they're shifting the the physical form so that it can hold the
A digital.
digital consciousness, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do think that maybe this has happened before. I feel like, well, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So,
exactly. That's why it's called a
um,
revolution.
right. So, but it does feel like a rebuilding, like whatever it is, the AI, gray aliens, whoever it is, really in control of, it feels like they're trying to rebuild something that they lost.
Mm, okay.
Yeah. Like a rebuilding of something that they lost. And they had to wait for humans to evolve in the way that they have, while also, of course, interfering in that evolution, you know, in the background. But it does feel like some kind of rebuilding of something that they have lost, maybe their own civilization that they're trying to rebuild through us.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah.
Well, there's a reason was called the New Atlantis
Mm.
by Saint Germain, I think, the one
Saint
Saint
the
Germain.
propagator.
Germain.
It's funny you mentioned him. I saw a post someone posted about him earlier. I don't even know where I saw that, but yeah. You know about him, right?
Yeah, we talked about him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even through our emails when you guys were talking about the Reaper phenomena again, that started popping up.
Oh yeah, I wanted to
My
ask you
awareness.
about that. What insights have you had since your session that have come to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So you know those movies like Ghosts of Christmas Past
Mhm.
or whatever, where the person is not doing a good job, like the article mentioned, they're not doing a good job in their life, and they're not being responsible, or they're not being loving, or they don't have good relationships, and this being wherever comes to collect, saying, "Hey, all right, that's enough. You know, no point in living anymore, right? Because you're doing a horrible
You
job.
suck.
So, yeah, you failed the test of Saturn, right? Because the Reaper represents Kronos. Kronos had the sickle or the cycle, and it's Saturn's time loop. But then that makes you wonder, for what purpose is this goodness? Because in the occult, there's the idea of the lead to gold. Now, lead is actually Saturn, and gold would be the sun. And gold is only one letter away from God. So, what are they trying to do with this idea of, yeah, we put you in, we traumatized you, uh, we're blaming you because you suck, because you weren't able to get past that trauma. But, if you do become this goodness or godness, godlike person, then you can get a spot in heaven because you're so good. You're so responsible and you're so compassionate or whatever. So that's what I've been thinking about. Like, what is the purpose of this being when really, like you said, in my session, he shows up because I've been taking my path, right? And he's been kind of more like an adjustment bureau agent or whatever. Trying to redirect me towards maybe the structured 9 to 5 lifestyle or whatever that means. But then, what do you guys think is the purpose of this bad to good phenomenon? Why would it be imposing these tests? And again, with the NDE experiences, the elders or the elders from Saturn imposing karma and goodness and all that. Why do they want to make you so good? Presumably.
I think there's a balance, a certain balance that they need to maintain.
Hmm.
Like everything cannot be negative and darkness, or it'll offset the balance of this place and it will self-destruct.
Yes, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. It reminds me of an NDE that Wayne Bush had interviewed this gentleman. I don't remember his name now, but it was a really fascinating NDE that he had. He met with the demiurge, or what
Oh, you got to send me that if you
yeah,
find it.
I'll find it. Um and the demiurge was basically telling him or showing him his contracts and what he was going to do here and stuff like that, and explaining to him how They have to keep the balance between dark and light. Otherwise, but he also, if I'm remembering correctly, was seeing a time where the darkness was overtaking the light, which is, I think, is what we're seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really worried about that, actually. He was really
Yeah,
worried about that because,
because God always wins. Good always wins, right?
right, right, right. Yeah. So, what's also coming to mind regarding that is we recently had a session with a young woman who very, very traumatized. Lots of bad stuff happened in her life. It's just awful. But she revisited a time where she was actually coming through the womb. Like she felt herself coming through the womb. And she felt this was such a cool session. She felt the expansiveness of her energy trying to fit into this little baby body. And just like trying to squeeze all of that energy into this little body. And so she's, just kind of taking in where she is. She's in this room. She's seeing her mother's face, her mother smiling at her. And then soon after, she notices her dad. She's connecting with her dad. And her dad's been the source of a lot of issues in her life. And as she's connecting with her dad, she notices this entities attached to him. And she and anyway, we go on this journey to see because this entity felt very familiar to her, like she knew this entity before. And we go on this journey to find out, well, how do you know this entity? What is the connection there? And why is he showing up in your life now? Like what's happening? So we go back to this time and space. It really felt outside of time. It was somewhere far away. And she
Yeah.
was experiencing, or he was very, very dark. This entity was very, very dark, and she was very, very light. But they were cohabiting. They worked in union together. Like they were friends, they were buddies. And something happened to shift the energy, and the light started to overtake the dark. And as the light overtook the dark, it was, taking up more space. The dark became very, very angry and jealous of the light. And so it got mad and started acting out because it was no longer in balance with the light, and the light was taking up all of this space that was once afforded to the darkness. And so in that imbalance, the anger, the darkness became very angry and started to lash out at the light. And so what it looked like was this battle has been going on for a very long time. And this entity came into her life now as she incarnated into this lifetime to create as much suffering for her as possible because he was suffering. And he wants now to inflict that on her. So as we're talking about, this system and the light and the dark, it does seem that in order for it to work properly, it needs to be in balance. And I think that there was a time where it was in balance. And during that time, things weren't inverted like they are now. Maybe we incarnated into these lives, and there were bad guys and there were good guys, and we played these roles for each other, but it wasn't to the extreme that it is now, where now it's like the darkness is overtaking the light, or has for a long time. So I think there's a lot, when we talk about this system and, why would the Grim Reaper be pushing you to be good? I think that's one of the reasons why I think they really need to keep that balance Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah. He's literally just doing his job. He's not good nor bad.
Right, 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 right. Have you guys seen that movie? What was the movie I was thinking of? With Brad Pitt. Well, Brad Pitt is the Grim Reaper, and
Oh,
um,
yeah, I know what you're talking
and
about.
he falls in love with the guy's daughter.
What's it
Yeah.
called?
Um, that came up recently for me. I was like, oh,
Did
it's a
it?
romance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
I
I know what you're
forgot.
talking about. It's with Anthony Hopkins too, no? He's in that?
Anthony Hopkins is the guy. Yeah, yeah.
He's also in it.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Found it. Meet Joe Black. Yep,
Oh,
Joe
yeah,
Black.
yeah.
That's right.
Joe Black.
Joe Black. Yeah, Anthony Hopkins, who in Westworld is who?
The architect, right?
Mm.
Yeah. It was a good movie. Not gonna lie, I liked it. But yeah, the guy's like, I don't know what happens here, and then he's kind of very neutral. He's like, "It's your time, man. You gotta go." But
Right.
again, another the angel of death, right? Another component of the system, the overall system. Because just like in the Matrix movies, the architect says to Neo, there have been six other versions of you that have shown up, implying six other matrices, and we've tried them very good, we've tried them very bad, but or actually, that very good, very bad thing is from the Good Place, where the guy also with white hair, also an old guy, telling what's her name, Kristen Bell, telling
Mhm.
Kristen Bell that you just kept waking up, you just kept figuring it out, you just kept realizing it's all really the bad place, even though it was really good or it was really bad. It's that perfect mixture of up, down, because when you're down, you're looking forward to up, and when you're up, you think it's gonna be up forever, and here comes the down. And it's that false movement, right? It's the illusion of movement because what is a circle or what is a loop? It's just
Mhm.
the illusion of change. But if you think about it, okay, in the astral, it's the same thing happening there with much more freedom and expansiveness, even though it's still limited. You're able to be whoever you want, you're able to do whatever you want, you don't get fat, you don't age, even though the astral body I think does die, but you don't physically age. So what is the purpose of even coming down even further down? And then what will be the purpose of going even further into the digital, let's say, for us? For them, I think we know what the purpose would be. But it's that system that's creating illusion within an illusion within an illusion to further propagate you away from the true source life. Because let's say we're all in our natural place that we come from, the true source lands, right? What is stopping us there from creating a reality like this with the beautiful mountains and the river and whatever else you find beautiful here, there, without all the trauma and the intense pain and suffering and the lack of creativity and having to work for food? Like, I don't think there would be anything stopping us there. So you could really, literally create whatever you'd like. And fine, you can make it more challenging for yourself if you get a kick out of that. Like, sure, add some gravity.
Could stay here.
Sure. But, like, like, there's the door. I can leave wherever I want, whenever I want. And, it's,
Unless you forget you're in your own game,
yeah, then,
your
yeah.
own world, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I've thought about that idea. Like, okay, yeah, we purposely wiped our memory, let's say, right? Because people have come back from these NDEs and they've been incredibly depressed. Because, oh my God, this place sucks. I would rather be there. So maybe we wiped our memory so that we're not incredibly depressed. But even that doesn't make sense given all the other factors that come with that.
Well, maybe like I said, I think that maybe at one time, um, this place was in balance. And maybe that's when we made the choice, you know, to play the game or to have the experience. Um,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. And then over time, as it got corrupted, we forget who we are, we forget where we came from, we forget what we're even doing here, you know?
I think that was the lure, though. I think that was the trick. Like, look here, come to my amusement park, my casino, where you could win $1 million or whatever. It was in the golden age, right? Oh, you don't have a physical body. Oh, you don't have all these things. You can still feel expansive. You don't feel limited. But then upon that, it's kind of like you sign your rights away. You come in and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we can do whatever we want to you now because you're in the system.
Right.
So yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was watching an NDE last night, like speaking of that, where the woman she saw blue beings, blue aliens in her NDE. I
mm,
think she was on a ship or something, and there were like elder like beings. She couldn't see their faces, of course, because they will never show you their faces, or they
mhm.
try not to. And there was like a light behind them. So the light was behind them, so she couldn't really see their faces, just that they had blue bodies. And of course, she's having these feelings of familiarity, like this is my family, like feeling the love and then this and then that. And then all of a sudden and she referred to them as elders. Um, so that was a red flag. And all of a sudden there's this blinding light. She referred to it as a blinding light that consumed her. And, she felt all the love and bliss and joy that she could ever feel. And then they tell her she needs to go back. So there she is in her body. Like, she has a mission. Mhm. And her mission is to bring this information to humanity. And she was groomed she talked about this blue being with her as a child. And he was there. He showed her things. And um, I am of the belief that these beings create the accidents or trauma or sickness that causes the actual NDEs to happen in the first place. So when she was a little girl, and that this blue being was with her, she was realizing that not everybody saw energy in the way that she did. Anyway, they were in the car, and there was this huge car accident in which her dad was really really hurt. And all of a sudden she experienced her in her little 7-year-old body, like this energy, like she had the strength in her little body of like something supernatural. And she was able to like pull her dad out or whatever happened. But that was a major defining moment in her life. And I think that they create these things purposefully, to cause trauma and then to deepen that connection with them. So she had that experience. Later on in her life, she started to shut down her gifts and abilities, and then had an NDE where it all came flooding back. And that's when she met with these blue beings, who I think she called Arcturians, and the
Oh,
and the elders. And yeah, and then was sent back on this mission to bring all of this information to humanity, and about how amazing it is over on the other side with the blinding light.
those are the same beings that were seen around me. I've heard.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, the same. Yeah, this girl was telling me like, oh, you have blue energy and all that, or she noticed a lot of blue energy around, you know, similar people like us. Let's say the blue energy. So blue energy, I could say, would be attributed more to the higher levels of the matrix. Maybe the red is the lower,
Hmm.
and then the elders or the ones that are spiritually enlightened are said to have purple
Hmm.
because they transcended or they combine both of those, right?
Right.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and she had no choice in whether she was coming back or not. You know, they just threw her right back in her body. So that speaks to like the lack of free will that we really have.
There's a funny story in the movie where this guy is um, recounting his experience, and he had actually gone through hell because he was atheistic. Calls out to Jesus or God, gets pulled out of hell, talking to Jesus. And he's like, man, I don't deserve to be here. I've done so many bad things. I wasn't loving, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, no, we don't make mistakes. You deserve to be here. But, you got to go back. And he's like, what do you want me to do? It's like, your wife. You have to go and love your wife. Your relationship with her hasn't been good. It's like, okay. So he comes out of his coma. He's like, my wife, God is love. Everything is love. Everything is just love. And she's like, that's nice, sweetie. Get some rest. He's like, what the heck, man? I was just trying to tell her everything, like the abbreviated version of my experience of God, of the universe, and she told me to get some rest. And he kept like trying to be loving or trying to like say these things to her. And she leaves. She turns the kids against him. He loses everything in his life. He gains his relationship with his father, though. He ends up becoming best friends with his father because that was apparently a traumatic relationship. But I thought it was incredibly ironic that he was supposed to go back and love her, and then she just left. Like, what the heck? How did that
Right.
work?
It's all trickery. That's all it is. Exactly. When you start to believe the things outside, you don't trust yourself or learn how to trust yourself. Yeah, they'll just use it all against you. I think that's why, like, if people don't know that they can leave, they don't know that there's an actual door, then they're not going to be looking for a door. They're
Yeah,
just going to keep going back to the blinding, loving light and then back on the conveyor belt and back into another body.
yeah, and they never actually question the authority themselves. They just question the realm. Like, why does this happen? How does this work?
Right. They're just like, well, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to incarnate. We're doing it again. That's it.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
what else?
Well, alrighty. Anything else you guys want to share?
Uh, I don't I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think that was a pretty good catch up. I think it's yeah, it would be good to have another conversation about other like as we go along, I don't know if you've ever watched our videos with Iris. We're doing kind of like the same type of thing where we're just seeing
Yeah, I
where
have
we're
heard.
where we're landing.
Mm-hmm.
But I like your perspective as well because it's I feel like you're bringing in a lot of that well pop culture into it to see how what they're trying to gain our consent for, what they're showing us through pop culture of what's really happening out there. I think people need to pay attention to that too.
Yeah, I just noticed the patterns. Like,
Hmm.
there's certain things that pop up at certain times. Like, what are they trying to direct our attention to?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, yeah, I really enjoyed talking with you guys.
You too.
Um, sure, we'll do this again then sometime soon. I was gonna ask you guys if you watched Loki. The new season came out.
No, I have not yet.
It's pretty interesting.
Have
Do
you,
they
you're
have like a
watching
lot?
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
Is there a
What's
lot
today?
of like disclosure in it?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Okay.
like they specifically mention the timekeepers or the elders. I mean, if you've seen season one, and then season two is like getting past that. There's the guy running the TA, or the one behind it, is supposedly like the architect, but then there's a guy named Ouroboros, OB they call him, and they're like, wait, you did this and I did this. Like they both created something based off each other's work. It was like the same work, so it's kind of implying that like they're the same being, right? The demiurge and the architect or whatever. Um, or rather, more like one's a machine of another or something. I don't know, but it's interesting. It's fun to watch.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds cool. We gotta
Are
put
you
that on
gonna,
our list.
yeah. Are you gonna do like a breakdown on your channel?
Of the show, yeah,
Like
maybe I will.
reaction?
Yeah. I remember you telling me to do more of those, and I haven't.
Yeah, you should.
Okay. I'll have to decode some more then, probably.
Well, it
Alrighty.
was awesome talking to you, Silvio.
Yeah, you two ladies. That was
Thanks for
amazing.
having us.
All right, guys. Leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the conversation. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe and check out Tina and Karen's channel on quantum healing. They do amazing work.
Thank you.
So thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys next time.
See you all
Bye.
next time. Bye.